Hi and welcome to the Ruby Tuesday. My name is Ruben and this is my three-part review, 3 movie reviews in one. So the first one we have is We Summon the Darkness. It's been out for about 10 days, but I still wanted to talk about it because I thought it was fairly unique. 3 best friends embark on a road trip to a heavy metal show where they bond with 3 aspiring musicians and head off to one of the girls' county homes for an after party. One of the really great things about this film is that its composer did Brightburn and Get Out. I really liked those scores, and so I wanted to see what kind of character the soundtrack or the score would handle in this film, whether it would be a prominent character or whether it would just be another thing that's just kind of added on. And we also have some very interesting actors in this, some notably that you'll recognize. We've got Alexander Daddario, Keenan Johnson, Maddie Hansen, Amy Forsyth, Logan Miller, Austin Swift, and Johnny Knoxville. There are a few others, but one of the main 3 ladies you'll recognize from Baywatch recently and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. These leads they've been around, so you can feel comfortable in the knowledge that they're gonna act quite well, and I feel like for the most part the acting is okay. I think it's the story that makes this quite fun. It's a different take on I guess, a serial killer storyline. It actually takes a different path than I was expecting it to. I thought that we were going to go heavy down the supernatural route, and I'll leave you to find out what happens with the themes, because I feel like you could have spoilers. If you were teetering on, do I like thriller, serial killer stuff, it is quite fun. It is different. I think it's acted quite well. The score, like I was talking about earlier, is definitely a character. It helps spur on that storyline. I like the freshness, and it's not brilliant. It doesn't change the aesthetic of films altogether. You know, it's not going to win Oscars, but it does try to do something new and different, which I really like. And when you get to the crux of the film, about halfway through, when stuff starts hitting the fan, you will start enjoying it more, because they build up the characters, they build up the friendships, and then you see where they're going with the storyline. And I like the gore and the prosthetics. There's some real work in the prosthetics down here when the gore is prominent and when they have to do things. I think it looks very real. There's none of this, well, that looks fake. There's none of this too much makeup or too much of a good thing, if that makes sense. Sometimes you can see where makeup artists have done too much and the gore and stuff just doesn't look real. I think here you have some work of practical effects that look quite fun and looks actually like people were getting harmed. I guess that's the way you're going for it. I also like what they were doing with the characters in this. Some of them go from being sort of mental to just all out crazy. The best thing I can compare it to is in the latter half of the first Scream movie, you get the killers who were like, you know, that they're stabbing each other. It's like, I'm feeling all woozy here, man. It's that sort of crazy, a serial killer crazy, if that makes sense. And you get that. And that seems to be quite fun for the characters and the actors to play with, to bounce off each other. I would say camaraderie, well, that's not really the right word to go for. The way they act with each other within the moments of the heightened tension that's happening, in those kind of scary tension moments, you believe what's going on. You are willing, I guess, certain people to survive, although with this film you're kind of wondering, is anybody going to survive? When Johnny Knoxville is on screen though, I really loved his character. Normally you see him in a kind of comedy aspect. He does comedy well. It's very dry. You've seen him in Jackass, that kind of stuff. But here he plays a character, a pastor that has just this amazing foreboding presence. You just know that you don't want to be around that type of character. And I think that speaks so much volume as to choosing him for that role and actually giving him something that he can really play with that's quite meaty but understated. And so whenever he's on screen, although it's not much, he really adds weight to the project. I don't think it's brilliant, but I think it's a lot of fun. If you enjoy your serial killer kind of teeny flicks, I think you're going to like this one. Second on the list is The Shed. It's available to stream or buy in various places wherever you get your films. I think May the 11th. When you're the outcast, the underdog, they all think they can mess with you. But what happens when you have a vampire in your shed? The game changes and everyone becomes a target. Make a choice. Who lives, who dies, who enters the shed? So the thing about The Shed, I took so many notes during this film, and by the end of my viewing of this film, I decided that I'm not going to be completely harsh on this film because I know what it takes to make a film. If you go back and look at my student films, you could compare This film to that, it's that sort of quality. A lot of the time you're thinking that it is a student film. What shocked me was when I went and checked out the IMDb, from the cast to the director, they have done a number of kind of bloody horror straight to DVD sort of films. There are moments in this film where I really enjoyed it, where I say that's not true. There are moments when I thought the dialogue was believable between two characters, and I sighed a bit of relief because I thought, okay, so this feels like a real film now. I'm believing these characters. But for a lot of the time, it felt like the actors were just reading off the script, were just kind of regurgitating what they've been told. So they knew their lines and they were just kind of rehashing them. It feels like it needed another couple of passes on the script, another couple of passes on the storyboard maybe. There are a lot of shots that just don't make sense, from where they go from one bit to another bit. The storyline doesn't make sense. The thing that intrigued me about this is the premise. Having a vampire in the shed and then taking your enemies to said shed and choosing who lives or dies. The problem is none of this is believable. You've got to get your audience to believe the situation they're in and for things to happen the way they do. The problem is with the vampire, most people know they're vampires. If vampires were true, you would have vampires have certain strength and abilities, and then depending on the lore you go for, you have to still kind of make a world where your audience can believe what is happening. The whole time you've got to believe that this vampire has got to be stopped in this shed, and at no point did I believe that would happen. You'll understand when you watch the film. I do think there are some positives in this film. I think the prosthetics, the makeup, all that, the gore bit, the gore work, I think that's very good. It's believable. I like the way they did it. There is some classic horror tropes. That was fun to see. You know, the classic dragging of the body backwards. And there are moments in the dialogue that I really enjoyed. But you will know what I'm talking about when you go into this film. You might sigh and you might switch it off. I would say there's fun to be had here. The thing that I really want from this film is I'd love it to be turned into a comedy. I know that's not possible, but when you see certain moments, this film is screaming out to be a comedy horror. So at the moment, it takes itself too seriously. But because of the budget constraints and dialogue issues and shot contradictions and shot issues and trying to drag out certain moments and characteristics that you just don't believe from people, all of that would have been kind of, you could have let it go if it was a comedy horror, because if it didn't take itself too seriously, you could laugh with it. By the end of it, I was laughing at the film, probably not with it, but there were moments I enjoyed. I love the prosthetics, and I like certain characterizations in certain moments, and I liked the theme, the idea of it. It's just, as a film, I can't really give my blessing and say, yeah, this is a great film, because it isn't. I like the idea behind it, and I think had it been given more of a budget and they had more time to go over the dialogue and the sequences more, then they might have had a decent story here. Harsh, but there are things to enjoy here. If you do it as a drinking game, I think you could have some fun. If it was turned into comedy, I think it would be pretty good. I feel like, even though I didn't want to come down harshly on this film, I have, which always makes me sad, because I know how hard it is to craft film. I know the amount of time and effort it goes into making films. I've been there, I've done that. So yeah, I'm sorry. I'm always sad when I have to kind of give a bad rating. I'm sure you can find stuff in this film that you might enjoy. It's not the worst film I've ever seen. I'm going to give this a D+. The third film I'm reviewing today is The Final Wish. It comes out on May 25th. Final Destination meets Wishmaster. Following the death of his father, Aaron Michael Welch returns home to help his devastated mother, LIN SHAYE, pack up his father's belongings. Discovering one item of unknown origin, Aaron soon comes to believe his wishes are coming true. But the more wishes he makes, the more danger he puts those closest to him in. This definitely feels like a Wishmaster film, crossed with whatever Origins Djinn movie you want to go for. It's that classic, be careful what you wish for. You know the origins of Djinn movies. They always twist what you wish for. I think that's the fun, because you know people that are driven into wishing for whatever from Djinns, they know they are desperate. And so you want to see what they're going to wish for, but then you see what they do with that wish. And I think that's the fun of the movie. It is a horror. It does have great prosthetics. It is a fairly well acted and put together film, along with the score, when I eventually watched this film correctly. It's quite funny. I was writing my second novel. I had a score of fantasy, 2-hour fantasy from YouTube going on, and when I first started watching this film, I had that in the background, and I was so confused with this film because I thought it had the strangest score attached to it. I was really getting annoyed. I paused it and then figured out that. So I went back and started watching again. I was like, oh, okay. It's okay. This movie's okay. It's got a halfway decent story, and I really like where it gets to in the end. Although if you could explain to me what happened in the end, if you get to watch this film, that would be great, because I'm still confused about it. And it's not often that a film can actually confuse me. I do like where the story went. I just think it takes a long time to get there. There is definitely a chunk of the storyline that you could remove. All the characters take a long time to get where they need to get going. You know where it's going to end up, and you're kind of... I think that's what drives you to keep watching the film, because the first 40 minutes is really kind of getting this family back together. There's estranged relationships, which I feel they play fairly well. They're Aaron's mother. I think the actress that plays his mother does a fantastic job. She plays happy, depressed, mood, freaked out, crazy. All of these things that her character has, she plays very well. I thought she was one of the best or better actors in this film.
Hello.
Mom?
You never listen to me!
There are moments when you have really creepy interactions. They try some really creative shots with that, which I really enjoyed. It's not the best horror movie by far, but if you're looking for something just to kind of pass your time with, or if you like that kind of genre, the Wishmaster sort of genre, I think you'll find that this is entertaining, although I'm not sure you'll like the ending. Although these endings are not surprising at all when you get to this type of genre, horror, thriller, Wishmaster genre. It's a new genre, guys. I think it's okay. It's definitely better than the last film I watched. Let me know in the comments below. Have you been looking out for this film? Have you heard of it? Will you try it out? Will you rent it? Do let me know in the comments below if you've watched any of these, if you intend to watch them, if this is your type of, I was going to say your cup of tea, if you're English. This is my cup of tea. Yeah, I think We Summon the Darkness is a fairly solid film. It's interesting and fun. I think The Shed isn't that great, but there's fun to be had within it. And I think The Final Wish, it also has some fun. It's well put together, but it's a bit drawn out. So I'm going to give The Final Wish a C+. Do chat to me in the comments below. Which of these three are you going to watch, or have you seen them already? Thanks so much for watching my combined review. But most of all, until next time, remember, live long and Tuesday.